People's Machine, coming back to you with episode 8 of the Gaming Roundtable. Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about a subject that everyone is very much aware of. The last couple of years we've talked about microtransactions, loot boxes, and all that good stuff that comes out with the gambling mechanics and terrible companies like EA and Activision and Ubisoft, the three big publishing companies. And I'm kind of keeping THQ Nordic out of it because they haven't really done this or fell into that. And I'm even going to lump Epic Games into this with their Fortnite game. One of the things that I have talked about with microtransactions and talked about the greed and talked about everything else, it's beating a dead horse. But I wanted to talk about was what is the real price of that? What is the real price that us gamers, what is our beef? And why are we so up in arms about it? And I think the real crux of it is if you stop and you bother to listen to us publishing companies, you want us to pay for all this extra content, whether it be maps or loot boxes or whatever. And you act like that, this is our game, we put all this stuff in there. Now, all this stuff isn't made like a loot box, it isn't made day to day. It's not something that, we invented these cards, or we invented these packs, or we invented this stuff today. Like, right, we came into work, I punched into work as a programmer, and I had a list. Hey, today you got to make this, and tomorrow you'll be making the same loot boxes with different random stuff in it the next day. That's not how it works. All this stuff is already in the game. Whether it's already stored on the server, because game companies, they may be updating games, but you got to remember that these updates are only coming from a handful of people. The rest of that company is generally working on something else. Yes, Overwatch, for example, is still updating, but they're working on Overwatch too. So there's only like a handful, 4 or 5 people that are actually working on updates, while the rest of the team is focusing on a new game. So they don't have time to every day someone punches in the clock for work and do this. What the biggest problem is with I think what really affects us as gamers is the fact that the publishing company goes to the developer, or the developer goes to the publishing company and says, hey, we got this cool game idea, and the publisher really likes it, and they say, well, how much is it going to cost to make, and how much? Well, we need $75 million or $70 million to make the game. And then they go, well, how are you going to monetize it? Blah, 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 blah. The issue that I don't think anyone really thinks about and has ever brought up in any video I've ever watched on YouTube or Twitch or anything has been the publisher fronted that money. So the idea that they need any more money is absurd. You want us to pay for a pack of, let's say, Fallout 76 cards or atoms or whatever in-game currency, or shark cards for GTA or whatever, loot boxes for Overwatch or whatever. The point is that those have already been made and paid for. The employees that actually developed those 3D models and the programming code that affects your stats and all this other stuff, they already got paid a paycheck to do that. That game was already paid for already. So any additional money is pretty much unnecessary. And I don't think that's why I think us as gaming individuals and gaming community are really, really up in arms. If you stop and think about it, if Destiny 1 costs $500 million over the course of 10 years to develop, Destiny 1, Destiny 2, and when they release a report, like in the first 3 days, Destiny basically made that money back, there's no reason to put any microtransactions in there. You made your money, you broke even, and then you increased sales. And it's a real shame that we are paying for content that was already paid for by the publisher. They already made those models. All that stuff was already made, and they're on to make another game. And it's a shame because that is the crux of the problem with the game industry. It's not the loot boxes, it's not the microtransaction, it's not the card packs, it's not the MUT cards, it's not the NBA 2K gambling casino. It's none of that. What really boils down to is the publisher gave the developer millions of dollars already to make the game. So all the stuff that's in that game, it's already been paid for. So why do we as the gaming community have to pay for it again? Because it's already been paid for. The publisher said, here's $80 million to develop your game. And so all the programmers spend the next year, 2 years, 3 years developing the whole game. They've already been paid their paychecks every 2 weeks, whether for the next 3 years. They're under contract, whatever. So they've already paid, the publisher's already paid for all that stuff that they're trying to sell back to us. And I don't think anyone really thinks about it from that level, but it's true. Just as I just stated about Destiny. $500 million is what it costs over the cost of 10 years to develop Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. And there's that Eververse microtransactions in there. What we forget is that even though the Activision Bungie are separated, the fact that Activision made the $500 million back in the first, believe it or not, thanks to hype and marketing, in the first 3 to 4 days. So all the stuff that they added that they try to sell back to us was already paid for by that publisher. They already give them that money. So they're literally they're making us, maybe not making, but they're enticing us to buy stuff that's already been paid for by the publisher. So and this is stuff that was either already on a disc with disc lock content, or it was already on the server, saved and stored and ready to go. And we got up in arms about the gambling mechanics and the pay-to-win mechanics over Battlefront 2, and then you got Fortnite selling skins for $20. Epic Games may only be working on Fortnite. And yes, maybe they come in and they come up with some new skins every 2-3 months. Someone has to model that. But they're still selling them for $20. But the point is that Epic Games and the developer on the inside, that game has paid for itself 100 times over. And yet, we still had to pay for the stuff that the publisher already is paid for. And I think that's a real shithill thing to do. EA with Madden, Ubisoft with For Honor. You can name game after game after game. And just like Ubisoft with Divisions 2 expansion. That expansion was actually developed during the life cycle of that game being developed. So it was already there. They just waited till later to launch it. Because Ubisoft is on to making other games now. And they make a lot of different games. They're busy on AC Valhalla. So the point is that for these publishing companies and to ask for all this extra money is absolutely absurd. Because, as I said, why, as a gamer, should I feel compelled to give you money for, let's say, a loot box or a skin or a card pack or whatever the DLC is because you made the grind really bad, when I know for a fact the publisher already gave you X millions of dollars to do all this to begin with? So it's already been paid for. That's what I think we're really upset about as gamers. It's not about your gambling mechanics, because I'm not addicted to gambling. There are people who are, and I think that's sad, and they need help. And I don't think nobody should prey upon the mindset of people who have addiction problems. That should be illegal. But I also feel that if you gave me all this money to develop my game, and all that stuff was developed, and then I try to sell it back to the gamer when you know it's already been paid for, that makes no sense, and it really doesn't. That's like someone giving me, here's 50 grand, I go buy a car for 50 grand, and it was free and clear, I don't owe a dime on it, but then I turn around and try to sell it back to somebody else for 80 grand, when I know that car's not worth that. It's a similar analogy. I'm mad at the publishing companies for dancing around that issue, but if you stop and really think about it, You have a game developer and a game publisher. Some stuff's developed in-house, right? EA is still a publishing company. Yes, they publish Madden, but the EA Sports is the one that's developing Madden. Just like BioWare's a part of EA, so is EA Sports, so is different companies that they haven't closed down. And if you stop and really think about it, if they gave me the money as a developer for this, and I've made all those models and all the loot box and everything's already in there, and now we're on to working on another game, and a couple of us are just updating it here and there, you're asking us as the gaming community, you're asking us gamers to pay for something that has already been paid for by that publisher because they gave that developer X dollars, usually in the millions, to develop the whole game in the first place, including the microtransactions, everything that they're trying to sell back to us. So I think when I really think about it, it's like, how dare you try to sell us something that's already been paid for? And I think that that's wrong. And it is basically pure greed at this point. And it's why they put these crazy grind, where you gotta grind and grind and grind, and you're like, I don't want to grind anymore. I've been playing the game for 200 hours. I'm sick of grinding. I'll just buy some shit and circumvent that process. But that stuff was already there. Someone already made that. Someone got a paycheck for making that during the development cycle before the game went gold, right? So the point is that money was already been, that item has already been paid for, and you're selling it back to me after you've already got the money for it. It's just, I think that is really the crux of it. If you break down and you take away the gambling controversy, and you take away the loot box percentage chances, and you take away the card packs and the star cards and the fucking this and the fucking that, that's what it really boils down to. At the end of the day, you burn away all those crucibles, and you're left with the truth for all time. Is, I'm a publisher. Here is $80 million to make your game. The developer takes 3-4 years to make it. They use all that money to pay their employees to make the game, including all models, all in-game microtransactions, all that's already made and stored on a server. So if you already paid for it, why do I have to pay for it again? And that's what you have to, as a gamer, an individual, or a community has to ask them. You as a publisher paid for this already. And if it's not enough for you as a publisher to make, if your game costs $80 million to make, and you make $180 million back, so you like broke even and then some, you made $100 million profit over the course of the next couple of years. If it's just still not enough for you, then there is a serious problem with the mindset of the people who need or want that money. And if a publisher, if that stuff's already been paid for, why are we paying for it again? And I think that's really what it, if you break it down, that's what all of our beef is that it's not fair. Because indie titles and stuff that are coming out the last 6 months, year maybe, have been killing it with sales, not being full priced, not doing all that microtransaction bullshit. And you know, a lot of these big publishing companies are shocked. They're like, why is these games like selling like crazy? It's because we're not asked to be paid for anything. We pay for a game and it's there up front, ready to go. And we don't have to pay for anything extra. It doesn't have some crazy grind. These $30 games, $20 games are coming out. They're really good games because they're not asking us to do that, because they don't need that kind of money. They're not greedy. They're just trying to get their name out there. They might at some point if they got really big, but that's what this episode is all about. The big AAA publishers and the AAA developers working in unison. And here's $80 million for your game. And I'm a developer. Thanks. And then all those people, 200 people who worked on the game for the last 3-4 years, all that money went into it. So all the stuff that they're trying to sell back to us in loot boxes and transactions and season pass and all that crap, that's already been paid for. So why do I have to pay for it again? And I think really that's what it boils down to. I think we needed to, instead of focusing so much on the gambling issues and focusing so much on a loot box with a 0.001% chance of getting some skin that I might get, and instead of focusing in on like the star cards and packs and all this stuff that they're trying to resell us that's already been paid for, that we need to just focus in on the main thing. You already got money for this. You already paid your employees to make these things. All that money's been paid for. It's free and clear. You've used the money. The game came out on time. You didn't need an extension. You didn't ask for any more money, and yet you're going to just nickel and dime us for stuff that the publisher already paid for. And that, my friends, is a big load of bullshit. This has been episode 8 of the Gaming Roundtable. I appreciate you tuning in. I'm part of the Unpaid Gamers on YouTube with Post-Human Guy. Check out his videos. I haven't been making a lot of big videos of late. I've had some ups and downs of late, in particular with family issues and things, so I haven't been able to get on here and make a video, but I got to thinking about this subject, and I feel like it had to be brought out there. I think no one's ever talked about, they're upset about everything else, but when you burn that all away, like I was saying earlier, this is what the episode's about. It's about that stuff was paid for already, so why the hell am I paying for it? And that's what this episode was about. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe to my channel. I know it ain't much. I don't have a video camera. I don't have anything but a microphone and a PS4, and you can't see my face, and it's not all fancy, but at least the subject matter is real and it's factual. So I really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you, as always. Please subscribe to Unpaid Gamers. Please subscribe to the People's Machine Gaming Roundtable. And as always, gamers, good gaming.